Hello, this is Andrei from Russky Airsoft workshop. Today I would like to talk about RetroArms CNC Gearbox 7075 series version 3. First, a couple of words about this series of gearboxes. RetroArms gearboxes are fully machined out of a block of 7075 aircraft grade aluminum on multi-axis milling machines with very high precision. They are designed for maximum durability, robustness and strength. Because of the improved design of these gearboxes and because of the used materials, these gearboxes are very lightweight, but despite of that are virtually indestructible. These gearboxes were tested by RetroArms with M160 mainspring without any signs of wearing or breaking for long term. Every RetroArms gearbox comes with a lifetime warranty against breaking. However, it doesn't cover the breaking caused by using a misused or non-suitable parts, for example, improper cylinder head. Let's take a closer look to this gearbox. It is delivered in a nice small black box with logo of RetroArms on it. The package includes a RetroArms sticker, a set of screws, the gearbox shell itself, and because this gearbox is equipped with a quick spring change system, a suitable CNC spring guide is also included in the package. The gearbox is designed for 8mm bearings that are available separately from this gearbox, or you can use any 8mm bushings on bearings of your preferred brand. Let's compare this gearbox with a VFC gearbox shell I was using to cannibalize the internals from. When you take both in your arms, you can directly feel the difference. The gearbox by RetroArms is almost 2.5 times lighter than the gearbox of VFC. 120 grams for the gearbox of RetroArms against 275 grams of the gearbox from VFC. If you take a look to the internal design of both gearboxes, you see that RetroArms gearboxes is designed with reinforcement in strategic areas. For example, here the top part above the cylinder is about 2mm thicker than the same area on the VFC gearbox. Also, you can see that the front part here is reinforced on the gearbox made by RetroArms, and the rear part is also reinforced because we will use the quick spring change system here. The most common failure of high power gearboxes is the breaking off of the front part of the gearbox. So this is addressed when RetroArms was designing their gearbox. Another improvements are actually on the other half. These two pins that when you close the gearbox will hold both parts tightly connected to each other, preventing any sliding back and forth or in any other direction. The third improvement, you can see it here, it's a small window that allows you to see the alignment of your pinion gear of your motor and the motor gear of the gearbox. The fourth improvement of the design, you can see it here on top, is that you can put the top cover latch with the closed gearbox, so after you completely assemble the gearbox. I have seen it on the gearboxes of some other brands, for example Gearbox and VFC. However, on the gearboxes on LCT, you have to do it on the stage when you are closing your gearbox. Enough talking, let's put the internals inside this baby. To shorten the duration of this review, I have already made some preparations. I have done the shimming of the gears, and I have already prepared electrical switch assembly and the wiring with the Gate Electronics Nano AAB MOSFET. For the internals I will use standard parts, Tokyo Marui compatible, from different brands like LCTairsoft, Gearbox, Azimuth, Systema, Garder, Elements, and of course RetroArms itself. Those parts are taken from my backup M120 gearbox. I was preparing for Border War 7 Operation Skylands earlier this year, but I never had a chance to use it because of my primary gearbox with M130 spring has perfectly survived this 50 hours mill seam. First, let me install this Gearbox selector plate. Put it in place, slide it a little bit backwards, and let me check with this piece of selector lever set. So, slides, works as designed, no problem at all. Now let's install a cutoff lever. I have here two cutoff levers. One is by Garder, another one, this one, red one, is by RetroArms itself. Let's try to install the RetroArms first, and then I will take a look how it works with the Garder. Okay, it is installed. Let me fix it with the screw. It moves freely. It has some freedom here and vertical axis. And when I slide the selector plate to go from semi-auto to full auto, I see that this cutoff lever is not going high enough to allow the replica shots in fully automatic mode. Let's check the Garder one. It is set. Let me fix it with a screw. Okay, it sits here tighter, has much less wobble and vertical axis, and when I slide the selector plate, it goes far enough to allow this gearbox to shoot in fully automatic mode. So I will leave the Garder one in this gearbox and proceed with further installation. Now let me install the ball bearings from RetroArms, the 8mm for the selector gear and the central gear. And let me install the gears. Central gear first and the sector gear now. Okay, I'm using a standard normal torque LCT gears, and I have already done the shimming of these gears, so I will not show this process in this video. I also use a D-layer on the sector gear that prevents from the misfeeding on the high-speed setups. However, it doesn't hurt also if you are using it on the normal speed or a high torque setup. Now let's see if the cutoff is triggered by the gear correctly. Yeah, as you can see, the cutoff goes up now as the selector plate is now in semi-automatic mode. After this is set in place, let me proceed with the cylinder and the piston assembly from different brands. So first of all, I will use the standard LCT full size cylinder and the standard stainless steel LCT cylinder head with applied airlap Sorbotan mode. And also as a piston assembly, I will be using the azimuth standard piston with RetroArms CNC aluminum piston head. The RetroArms piston head has additional tiny O-ring here that should improve the compression inside the cylinder group. So let me put it in the gearbox and let us check how it is working by turning the gears. So it goes perfectly, piston is pulled back as it should, and the sector gear turns freely further. So normally if we would have a mainspring, the piston would go inside and the gear should start another turn. Now let me use a second setup, and the second setup is with the same standard full cylinder, the element silent cylinder head, the element silent piston head, and the standard LCT piston. Put the cylinder assembly into the gearbox, align the piston. So, and let's test by turning the gears. So this works as designed, as it should work. The piston is pulled back, the gear is free. If you would have a spring, the piston would go back inside into the cylinder and the gears will take another turn. As I would like to test the RetroArms piston head, I will continue using the first setup further in this video. Now I will remove this cylinder and a piston assembly and proceed with the installation of electrical switch. I will use the standard Gearbox electrical switch assembly that I have already pre-wired with the signal wires for the MOSFET. Let me put the electrical switch assembly into this gearbox. So just put it through here. And click it in place. So it is installed. Now, to make my life a little bit easier, I will remove the sector gear and install this small spring that ensures the working of the trigger, the electrical switch. Like this. As you probably can see, this pin here has a cut that will hold this spring in its place, preventing the sliding off from the pin. So it is working. Now I can install the trigger by the RetroArms, and this part I'm using the old one from my previous Gearbox gearbox. Slides and moves freely. I will install the spring, the trigger spring, and install the trigger assembly in its place. So I will just push it a little bit to hold it in place, show you the working. Everything works. So I will remove it for now and will install it just at the end stage, at the final stage of the gear installation of this gearbox. Now with all that tested, we can proceed with the further installation of the cylinder set, the nozzle and the tappet plate. The tappet plate is by Systema Energy. The nozzle is a standard LCT with a tiny O-ring to improve the sealing, and the setup of the cylinder and the cylinder head I already told you before. is the standard LCT cylinder and the cylinder head with applied Sorbotan pad mod by Airlab. So I will put the nozzle on the tappet plate, slide it on, connect the spring and put everything into the gearbox. And now I need to fix it with the pin that is installed in the gearbox to hold this spring. So just slide it on the pin. You can test the movement of the tappet plate. It works fine. So we are almost set. Let me install the other gears, the trigger sets, and the anti-reversal latch, which is also made by LCT. First, I need a bearing here. Put it back. I will install the sector gear. First, I would like to align the tappet plate and the sector gear, so we are free to install the piston in here. Slide the piston in. And now it is time to install the anti-reversal latch and the motor gear in this box. So anti-reversal latch goes in here. As you can see, it stays there. It doesn't jump out because of the cut, because of the hole for this anti-reversal latch. And now let me install the motor gear. As you can see, everything is installed, nothing is jumping out. We can proceed with the installation of our trigger, and then we can close the gearbox. Now let me install the top cover. First the trigger assembly, just like this. Okay, it is set. The top cover, I will just hold the trigger assembly so it doesn't jump out. The top cover is in its place, tappet plate is working. So like this we can close the gearbox. Check the trigger, it is working. We can now proceed with the installation of external gearbox parts and test. So this gearbox has 6 screws, 3 long screws here, here and here, and has 2 shorter screws on the top and 1 on the front. Like this. Let me check the working. Works. So now I can install these pieces for the selector. Okay, like this. Screw it on. Not too tight, so it moves, it works. this one here. Alright, must align them properly here. So now when we will use the selector on the body of our AK, it should work properly like this. So this assembly is from Garter. It's compatible virtually with everything. To shorten this video, I have already installed the motor cage with the motor and the wiring with the MOSFET. The motor cage I use is the old one from a Gearbox Gearbox. The motor is Garter Infinity Torque Up motor. The wire is actually the silicon wire from Gate Electronics, and the MOSFET is Nano AAB, also from Gate Electronics. I have to say a couple of words about the compatibility of the motor cage with this gearbox. So it fits almost perfectly. I just need to use two shims between the gearbox and the cage to remove the small wobble I have experienced there. All the rest is perfect. Okay, now I'm almost ready to do a shooting test, but before I need to install a spring. I will be using SP100 spring from LCT, and in the second part of this video I will perform a shooting test with this spring and probably with SP135 and SP150, also from LCTairsoft. Let me put this spring inside the gearbox. The shorter steps should go to your spring guide, the longer steps should go in your piston. As I'm a righty, for me it will be more comfortable to install the spring inside the gearbox from the right. So I put the spring inside, put the spring guide here. I use the Allen key. I just push everything inside the gearbox and slightly turn it. I hope you can see it. You turn it 90 degrees, it jumps a little bit out. So now the spring is installed, the spring guide is fixed in its position. Now we can do a test. To do that, I need to connect my signal wires. I need to connect my battery. Okay, we are set. It's a single mode, semi-automatic, and now it's automatic mode. Back to semi-automatic. Works perfectly, and it is ready for the field test of the coming weekend. This will be all for today concerning this gearbox. I have only two remarks. So first of all, the cutoff lever. I will still use the standard one, Tokyo Marui compatible, because this one is not pushed high enough by the sector gear. So it will probably not function in a fully automatic mode. It will shoot only semi-automatic. Maybe one day I will test it, but not today. A second remark. The wire management system. I would like to see some solution like from LCTairsoft, so these wires are not hanging around this gearbox, but maybe fixed or tied up to this gearbox. For the rest, it's a perfect piece of craftsmanship. It fits all the standard parts I have from different brands. And as a kind of bonus track, let me introduce you a CNC hop-up unit for AK. Let me show you that these two pieces are made perfectly for each other. So I have removed the screw. Now just slide it on, it clicks, and if you take a closer look, you see like it is a one piece of aluminium. I will be installing this hop-up unit together with the Prometheus barrel inside my AKS-74, and in the coming weekend or just after the weekend you will see the field trials and how this gearbox and this hop-up unit are actually performing on the field. I would like to thank you for your attention. Follow us on the Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, more reviews are coming. See you in the next video.